Talk Sport, we are the two mics. We've got lots to do between now and the end of the show. Of course, it's coming up, the Porky Quiz, which is going to be on the American Civil War. And, of course, I was telling you about American Civil War battlegrounds the other night.
Yes.
And how my ex-wife used to say that she could hear voices and
right.
sort of see ghosts and spirits and things like that around that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk to an expert now, Bonnie Vent. She was on TV. She's a medium, a psychic detective.
Great.
Because Fabian Delph, footballer for Manchester City, who hasn't played for them very much lately, says that he sees ghosts all the time. And he describes, sounds, banging around, that kind of thing. He says that he looks at faces, he sees all kinds of shapes and all kinds of things. I'm wondering if certain people see things that other people don't see. So I'm going to ask Bonnie, because I've never personally seen one. Bonnie, a very good morning to you.
Hi, how are you guys?
Yeah, very well indeed.
Thank
you very much for coming onto the show and helping us to figure this one out. We're both ex-journalists. I suppose you might say some of us still are journalists, but we've both done stories about ghosts and hauntings and that kind of thing. And I've never physically seen a ghost, but I've been to places and interviewed people who say that they have in the past. Is it the case that some people see them and other people don't?
Well, it seems to be, and usually people see them by accident. Like in his case, it just went as a flash.
Right.
He wasn't intending to see something; he just did.
Right. And if you see something and it is a ghost, I mean, are you pretty sure that that's what it is? I mean, I know that may sound like a silly question, but if you see something which is from the another dimension, are you immediately struck with that? I know that's a ghost because it couldn't be anything else.
Well, not necessarily, because there is a thing called latent energy, which he talks about actually seeing someone walk across holding a body and going out the door. That sounds more like latent energy because he was not really in contact. There was no communication going on. So that sounds more like picking up on an energy pattern from something that happened in the past. But we'd need to know what hotel he stayed at to be able to do that kind of research. But I did do some poking around, and there is a hotel in Dudley that claims to have something very similar to what he said he experienced. And these are sightings from other people that stay in the hotel. They've seen ghostly apparitions, furniture moving on its own, whispering in their ears, sensations of being touched, and the sheets being pulled off the bed.
It's all very interesting.
If he stayed at the Dudley, then I would say, yeah, he's probably telling you what he actually experienced.
Yeah, absolutely, because his brain's wired to it. Now, Bonnie, because you're a psychic detective, can you tell me this? What actually is a ghost, in your opinion? What I'm saying is that the general acceptance in the Christian world is when you die, you either go to heaven or you go to hell. What is a ghost? Is a ghost somebody who's tormented and doesn't want to go into the next life? Or is it somebody who can't get into the next life for some unknown reason? Or are they trapped in some sort of, warp, some sort of cosmic warp, which prevents them from moving on?
Well, in speaking with people who are in that kind of situation, I refer to them as spirit people. Some of them actually stay back for particular reasons, and they can be loving reasons, like they want to hang out with their family still, and they want to visit their family. That's the most commonly reported thing, is somebody senses their grandmother or their grandfather or someone who they know has passed come back to say goodbye and that kind of thing. That's the most common thing. When you get into these haunted hotels, these people have died in places that are not their home. So it's already an unfamiliar situation. So in the case of haunted hotels, a lot of times something tragic happened to them, and they're waiting for an answer or to get their story straight.
Yeah, but if it's a choice, I'm sorry, Bonnie, if it's a choice, then there should be millions of ghosts and millions of ghost sightings, because most people want to stay with a loved one, when they die. They'd like to still be around. So why are ghost sightings so rare?
Well, apparently not. Apparently it's more compelling to go and move on. Everyone talks about this. It's kind of a frame of language that we use. It's like, they went to a better place. They went to a happier place. Rest in peace. So apparently it's better there than it is here. So they come back and they say, hey, I'm okay, I'm doing fine, and then they go do whatever they're going to do next.
Yeah,
I suppose that depends on where you are at the time.
Well, I suppose it does. But, you take a battlefield where people die, like on the first day of the Somme battle in the First World War, 50,000 men died on the first morning of that battle. You would think, wouldn't you, that if you went to that battlefield, there would be a lot of ghosts around of tormented men who didn't die at their homes, torn away from their families and all that. I mean, I do find the whole concept of ghosts difficult to accept in a general level. It has to be specific to an individual.
Well, in places like Gettysburg, which is what I'm more familiar with, Gettysburg, you actually do have a lot of energy on those battlefields,
right.
And the battles continue to rage on, and people experience it and they see it. And
see, my ex-wife used to see
energy,
this
because when you've died instantly, you're going to have that energy just going right out into that atmosphere.
My ex-wife was driven sort of temporarily kind of mad by this, because she would go to these places and she said she could hear...
Well, like Gettysburg.
Yeah, she could hear the battle and she could feel this kind of force, and it was quite unsettling for us who didn't feel it, because we were all like, well, we don't see anything, and didn't feel anything or hear anything. Which is why I was asking you that maybe some people are more attuned to it, if you like.
Yeah.
Yeah, some people are. Some people are very closed off to the whole notion of it, and so they will explain away everything that they experience as well. And then some people will go the opposite, and everything will be considered a paranormal experience, and you're actually somewhere in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
But in places like that, where you've had a lot of death all in one place, it's more the energy imprint of those people at the moment that they died.
Right.
So that's actually an energy imprint of a living person.
I mean, here in the UK, obviously,
not a ghost.
Compared to the United States, where we've got many, many more old... I mean, in London, for example, you've got, all sorts of haunted places, old pubs down by the river, that used to be places where people were murdered or hanged or punished or something like that. I mean, by definition, I suppose you would say there are more ghosts in those kinds of places, in older places, than in newer places.
Oh, I would think so, because you've got, layers and layers of history, and especially if it's violent history, which we all have that. The United States is younger, obviously, so we don't have as much violent history, but we do have a violent history, and that's usually where these things come from. I found a place, a hotel in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, that seems to be a problem for baseball teams.
Oh yes.
They all have to stay at the Pfister Hotel, which is on it's the top 10 most haunted hotel in the country, and they report having the same things as your guy that we're talking about. They report similar kind of things and refuse to stay. So there again, the whole team stays, and 2 or 3 people have an experience and go running out and don't ever want to go back.
Yeah, that's amazing. It must be the individual there. Do we need educating about ghosts, Bonnie? Because I've never understood why people are frightened of ghosts. I mean, I've never seen a ghost, but if I did, my attitude would be, well, hang on, you can't touch a ghost because it's not of a physical nature. It's it's an apparition. I've never heard of a ghost doing any harm to anybody. Their mere presence shouldn't be frightening because they, they
might look frightening.
Well, it's an apparition, isn't it? A ghost. What I'm saying, really.
They don't usually. I mean, they don't usually look frightening. Why would they? If they want to communicate with you, they're not going to try and scare you.
Exactly, that's what I mean.
You're scared because it's something you're not familiar with.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So don't we need education about this? Because ghosts have a bad name, whereas in fact... we could be taught that if there's a ghost about, it's about for a reason. And that reason is to warn you, because we read many, many stories about people saying, I saw the ghost of my father the minute before I didn't step off the pavement onto the road and would have been killed by a runaway lorry or something like that. You know what I mean? If ghosts...
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And, there's as many reasons why these things happen as there are people.
Yeah.
That's why I say ghosts are people, too. They're just people that don't have physical bodies anymore.
Can you make yourself
but they
more...
still have their emotions. They still have their personalities. If they were a practical joker when they were alive, then, they might... play practical jokes on you.
Can you make yourself more receptive to seeing a ghost, Bonnie? I mean, I don't know in your work whether you talk to people who want to see a ghost, maybe of a former relative or something like that. Can you make yourself more available to see ghosts, if you know what I mean?
Well, you can get yourself, as you were saying, you can put yourself in locations where there's been reported sightings by other people and see if, you see something in a similar situation. But really it's just a matter of being open-minded and open to life experience in general.
Yeah.
There's a lot of mysterious things that happen around us that we don't have an explanation for.
That's
I
very
agree.
true.
I agree.
Certainly on this show. Bonnie, thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, Bonnie.
Bonnie Ventler, psychic detective and a medium and TV personality.
Absolutely.
I was waiting for you to mention the ghost Rosalind Jason story that you talked about.
Well, I mean, that was a bit ridiculous. This is women who think they're actually having sex with a ghost.
Yeah.
They believe that, you know...
Why didn't you ask her about that?
Well, because I think that was something that Bonnie, who is, a very serious psychic detective, I don't think she would have appreciated me trying to turn it into some sort of titillating sexual story.
Really?
No, I don't think she
You
would.
were very respectful
I did
to her.
want to tell her my famous ghost story, which I've told the listeners a few times.
No, I'm not going to talk the one about the Highlands.
Yeah.
Don't tell that one again.
The guy comes in through the door downstairs.
No, but you've already told him about a million
He goes
times.
upstairs with his wet bag.
Yeah.
He never comes downstairs,
Right.
and they never see him again.
Yeah, but that's their story, isn't it?
But
it's not your story.
That's a very good mate of ours, Peter Keswick, who made a substantial... Peter Myers from Keswick, who made a substantial living in America through being a good businessman. He's not a nutter.
I didn't
and
say
he
he
says
was.
it happened to him.
Yeah, but
he was in the bothy
rubbish.
during a wild storm.
Have you never heard of a shaggy dog story?
In the Highlands.
Yeah, but he's obviously bought you and reeled
And the man
you
in
in.
the kilt knocked on the door.
Yeah,
Can I come in and shelter from the storm?
But he's reeled you in and made you believe the story.
He went upstairs.
Yeah, we've already heard the story.
And he never came down.
Yeah, I wish you'd go upstairs and never come
And there
down.
was no other way out of the bothy that night.
Yeah, so,
as the storm
for God's
raged
sake.
in the Highlands.
Sake. This is Talk Sport.
The Two Mics, simulcast across the UK on Talk Sport and Talk Radio.
Well, we are the Two Mics. The Porky Quiz coming up in the next hour. Fascinating conversation that with what you described as a very serious psychic detective.
Well, I think your
it's not
first
a
question to her might have actually got to the core of it. Some people have brains that are wired to be aware of the presence of ghosts.
Exactly.
In a situation, and others
I'm
like
surprised
me.
You've never seen one.
No, I haven't. And
because you're quite superstitious.
I'm quite superstitious, but I always say, look, ghosts don't exist to me, but I can accept they exist to other people.
I mean, have you ever had a dream, for example, where you imagine somebody from your past, not a past life, but say some relative of yours that's no longer alive, is talking to you?
No,
which could be similarly sort of broken down as a ghostly apparition.
No, I've never had a dream where I've seen the face of my father talking to me and giving me advice in a hard situation, something like that.
Yeah.
However, I dream all the time about being out with my dad in his Morris Minor.
Right. Could that not be considered a sort of a ghostly appearance, though, in your dream, even though it's not necessarily you're looking at it?
I don't know.
You should have asked her about that.
Well, yeah, maybe, but I mean, I didn't regard that as sort of ghostly. That's just dreaming.
But I wonder if it is, though.
Well, maybe it is. I don't know. Maybe it is.